All right, so let's make a formal introduction for our listeners. Good afternoon, David. My name is Claudio. I'm calling you from Washington, D.C. From the studios in Fairfax City, we're very humble and grateful that David Singleton accepted our invitation to our show. David, welcome to the show, man.
Pleased to meet you.
Same here. The last 2 years have been very difficult for everybody in the whole world. It had nothing to do whether you're a musician or whether you believe in the vaccine or the COVID has affected, every single person in the world. How you manage and how you holding up, man?
Well, we managed better than we expected. So, as you probably know, King Crimson was meant to be touring in the US in 2020.
Correct.
And just like everybody else, we did nothing because we were all locked in our houses. So literally locked in. So in 2020, we went nowhere. From a musical point of view, it was interesting because we put out Music for Quiet Moments by Robert. So we put out one soundscape every week on YouTube to offer people a piece of calm in their lives. And that was wonderful, actually. I find it very therapeutic doing it. It was wonderful that people enjoyed listening to them. Fascinating the way the world, bizarre things happen that you don't expect, because we were giving them away. We weren't planning to sell them. We put them up for free on YouTube. Have a listen to this. It's wonderful. And having done that, a lot of fans got in touch and said, "Oh, can't we buy these?" So having given them all away,
that's right.
We then made a box set with 4 of them in 8 CDs in, and sold them to people. And it became, I think, the highest selling soundscape album we've ever done. The one we intended to give away. Isn't it fascinating how the world works? So that was the first half of COVID. 2021, remarkably, we did tour the US. So we came all the way around the US, and from a managerial point of view, it was incredibly stressful for a number of reasons. Firstly, because until about a week before the beginning of the tour, we didn't know we were going to be able to play it. The tickets were all there. It was on sale. Everything was on sale. But we had to get a special visa to be allowed out of England into America, because the border was still not open. Correct. It was only about a week. It was only about a week before the tour when they finally gave us permission and said, "Hey, you're allowed to come to America." So we came to America, and just when the new variant was coming out, and we went all the way around America, and somehow with 20 people in our crew, we dodged it. No one got COVID, which is wonderful, because I don't know if you know, but you can't insure against COVID. So normally, when you go on tour, you take out insurance so that if anything goes wrong, you can get the money anyway. There was no insurance against COVID. So if somebody got COVID, we would have been left with all these expenses of this huge, great 3 buses, 2 trucks, all these people on the road. We'd have had all the expenses and no income, but nobody got it. It was a miracle. We went all the way around, played the shows. That was wonderful. So that was last year. And this year we came out with just me and Robert got it.
That's
I
right.
don't know, but so we'd literally arrived. We did 2 shows.
Yeah.
Robert thought he was getting a sore throat. But no, when we called the doctor in, it wasn't just a sore throat. He had COVID, so he had to do the isolation for 5 days, wait until he was better. So we had to cancel some shows. But fortunately, the rest of us are all fine. Yeah. And so mostly, I think, compared to millions and millions of people who had a terrible time during COVID. Yeah. Remarkably, really, it wasn't, it was tough, but not in the way it has been for millions of other people. So.
Yeah, in this country, as you know, over 1 million people die and millions of people all over the world. We had a crazy president before that didn't believe in the stuff, and it's crazy. Other countries did, like Australia, did much better, right? So, yes. And as you know, if you are a touring musician and you make your salary, when you're traveling. So if you stay at home, you don't get much money, so it's very difficult. Do you think that? I mean, there gotta be a way that eventually, right? So artists should put pressure on insurance company to offer a sort of COVID insurance, because you need to pay the money up front, right? You have the truck, plus never mind here, but for you guys that are foreigners coming here to the United States, you need to pay very expensive working visa. So right?
When King Crimson go on the road, we have something like $2 million worth of expenses.
Wow.
And I mean, we earn the money. So if the tour had been completely cancelled, probably we would have to have bankrupted the partnership that runs the band. I mean, it was that bad. We are on the hook for something like $2 million worth of expenses, and you can't insure them. Normally, you can insure them, but you can insure them for everything except COVID, which isn't very helpful because the big thing that you're worried about is COVID. So
that's right.
I'm sure it's why a lot of bands simply stop touring, because the financial risk is ridiculous. And interestingly, the film industry and the television industry had exactly the same problem during COVID. And the governments in both, I'm certainly in England and in Britain, and I'm fairly sure in America, the government stepped in, and the government offered insurance so that they wouldn't, otherwise people would have stopped making TV programs and films.
That's
because
right.
because they had the same problem that they couldn't insure against it. And in both of those industries, the government stepped in to ensure that you could get insurance, but not with musicians. I don't know why, but not with musicians. Have all just been left out to dry.
In some European countries, because I have interviewed people from England, from Denmark, from Norway, the government gave them a little bit of money. I don't know, $2,000 a month for the next 6 months for them to survive. But many bands that are perhaps starting out on the life, they are not well known, they don't tour that much, they kind of went out of business, I think, and went back to school or got another job and forget about the music, because they thought we're not making money. I have a wife and a kid, I need to pay the bills, and right?
No, I'm sure a lot of people got caught in it. As I said, we were lucky in England, in Britain. The government offered self-employed people who earned below £50,000 a year some support, which is wonderful. They needed it. There was no support above £50,000 a year, and thankfully, I'm pleased to say all of King Crimson earned more than £50,000 a year.
Of course,
but that meant they got no support at all, which is fine. But it was a funny situation. So you're right. You had a strange mixture, and I'm sure a lot of people weren't able to carry on easily with music during it.
Let's go back to the beginning of your life. Were you born like in a musical family? I mean, how long were you when you perhaps began, I don't know, taking piano lesson or guitar lesson?
Okay, so neither of my parents were overtly musical, but there was obviously something about me, because yes, I had piano lessons when I was very young. I can remember when I was sent away to boarding school, which wasn't a very pleasant experience, but I can remember when I was about 8, I used to creep under the bed sheets at night with a sheet of manuscript paper and write music. I've always wanted to compose music. So I'm sure they're unlistenable if I found those manuscripts and tried to play them, but I can remember doing these compositions when I was about 8. So I don't know. I've wanted to do nothing other than music from about then. And until my mid-teens, it was really exclusively classical music that interested me. I knew nothing really about pop music at all. And sometime in my mid-teens, very late, I was probably about 15, my brother gave me some cassettes of the Beatles.
Gotcha.
And I regret to say that is what changed the direction of my life. So until then, it was really purely classical music. I was conductor of an orchestra. My brother gave me these cassettes of the Beatles, and parts of it spoke to me instantly. Parts of it I really didn't understand, but there was obviously something special about it. So I kept on wanting to listen to it again and thinking, okay, well, what's going on here? And so that's when I became fascinated with songwriting, and which then moved into production. And I've never considered doing anything else. It's that simple.
But you was any family pressure when you were 18 years old, when you need to make a decision? Well, it's music, it's school, university, your parents telling you, forget about music, you're not going to make any money, you want to go to college, find a girl, get married and make money.
So I did go, I was lucky. I went to Cambridge University. So I was very lucky. I went to Cambridge University, and the only time my father has probably given me, what was probably very sensible advice, was your 3 years at university. And at the end of my second year, I was considering leaving. I was saying, I really, I want to go off. I want to pursue, particularly songwriting at the time. That's what I think I should be doing. Why am I at university? I should leave. And my father persuaded me otherwise. He said, hold on, do 1 more year, finish your degree, and then go and do what you like.
That's right. Yeah.
Which was right. And I listened to him. Fortunately, I think I listened to him. But thereafter, my family have been unbelievably supportive. Whether or not they think it was mad at the time, I don't know, because they never suggested it. They simply, that's what you want to do, then we will do everything we can to support you, which is wonderful. So,
yeah. For me, I have, kind of a little bit opposite of you. I grew up I never told you, I grew up in Chile. I was born in Chile.
Yes.
And I came to the United States to study. And I was a terrible kid. And when I was 14, I kind of got my first 3 vinyls. It could have been, I don't know, Genesis or Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, I don't remember. And I knew exactly that music was my thing. And my parents were very academically oriented. No, forget about music, man. School is the only way, and so the word. And I was a rebel, and eventually ended up here in the United States, and I did okay in my life. But
I think if you're really passionate about something and you follow it,
you need to do it. There's no way around. I mean,
you have no choice.
That's right. I mean, in many ways, if people say, well, you became a musician or a musician choose you, probably that's the latter. I mean, some people are born for a specific thing and are very good at it, right? It's hard to become an architect if you don't have, I don't know, the skill set or the passion to do it. No,
and if you have a passion, you have to follow it, and you may not make as much money as you might have done in some other routes, but that's what you have to do. And if it is something that really, really matters to you, usually the world supports you. Not you won't make you very rich, but normally there is enough to get by somehow. That's my experience.
Well, if you're good at what you do,
then the world will be okay.
You will make a good income. And I interviewed one guy, I forgot the name, like a year ago. He told me, my dad told me, don't have a plan B. That way, you need to make it. If it's music, you need to make it happen. If you like the stuff.
Yeah, no safety nets. Life is more exciting that way. No safety net. There we are.
No safety net. Are you happy doing? Well, you became a producer, record label associated, began working with Robert Fripp. You write your own stuff. Are you happy that you can do all the things?
So yes, I found it frustrating for a while that I couldn't properly address my own creative endeavors, like my own songwriting. I've written a book as well. That was partly because I had a young family. So in fact, it wasn't really just because I was working with Robert on King Crimson things. It was also, I had young children, and I don't find it possible to play, to be half-time creative, put it like that. In other words, when I'm a songwriter, or particularly if you're writing a book, you need to be able to do it full on. I don't think it's something you can say, oh, well, I'll do it on the weekend when I've got some time, and then I'll shut that door completely for the rest of the week. I think if you're a songwriter 24 hours a day, somewhere below the surface, it's always there going along. It's not something you can sort of switch off and switch on. So for a period of about 10 years, I sort of put it in a box and sat on it and said, I'm going to be a father, and I'm going to work with Robert. And looking back, I found that frustrating. It was necessary, but frustrating. But no, otherwise, right now, I love the balance. I really enjoy my relationship with Robert. Yeah. I think the music of King Crimson is astonishing, and I'm really pleased and honored when I have a chance to help it into the world. And increasingly, I now also have a vehicle to return to my own creative endeavors. So right now it seems to have all been a very sensible plan, even if there wasn't a plan in the first place.
That's pretty good. Eventually, you get to the stuff you like. It. What was the motivation to put this tour together?
So put, sorry?
What was the motivation of put the tour together with Robert and go on the road with the awful man and his manager?
Oh, okay. So it grew from the Royal package. So before the King Crimson shows, we were discussing something that we could do to add value for special fans who were willing to pay more money for a special ticket, which was one of the ways of helping to pay for the $2 million worth of expenses on a King Crimson tour. We thought we should do a special package for fans, for a limited number of fans. And Robert finds it very difficult to do anything else on the day of a King Crimson show. So a sort of conventional meet and greet with the band wasn't possible. Right. And so when we talked about it, I think Robert had this bright idea. He said, what we should do, David, is, the fans should come in early and somebody should talk to the fans, and that person should be you. So I came on the King Crimson tours, and the fans could come in an hour early, and I would talk to them and tell them things about, how the world of King Crimson worked and the music. And then at the end, one of the other band members would join me for 5 minutes or so for a quick question and answer. And to begin with, Robert didn't contribute to that at all. Increasingly, though, Robert thought he should and would enjoy doing it. So Robert used to come out and introduce me. So we'd have an evening when Robert introduced me, I talked to the fans, and then another band member came out. And that sort of found its own rhythm by the end. And Robert found it frustrating that he couldn't talk for longer because he had to go and prepare for a show. So he couldn't really waste all his energy talking to the fans and answering their questions. So that now that King Crimson is no longer on the road, he said, well, why don't we do that? Why don't we go out and we'll do it, and we can both give it it's all we're doing now, so we can give it a whole evening worth of, okay, if you've got questions, we will answer all your questions.
That's
it
right.
grew from that.
Yeah. I'm happy you guys are doing that. And Robert, he's very focused. I mean, when he's in King Crimson, I don't know, 24 hours a day. I exchanged a couple of conversations some years ago with Robert Fripp. I don't know him personally, but he's very driven. He's very focused. It's different type of person, I think.
Well, I think when he takes his responsibility to King Crimson very seriously. Yeah. And when King Crimson is on the road, the purpose is to deliver the best possible concert that you can. That is why King Crimson is on the road, to play music that can change people's lives. And for that to be true, Robert has to put his entire focus of his entire day is on King Crimson. He gets up in the morning, he writes the set list for King Crimson, he practices the show, he doesn't allow any distractions, such that the show will be the best possible show it can be. And you're right. So when King Crimson is in active mode, really Robert can do nothing else. Nothing else that would require a significant amount of his attention. And so yes, so now this has become possible because it's not, which is great fun. So
absolutely. Feel free to elaborate on the motivation of the idea of creating the Discipline global mobile label. How it came about?
It came about because the rest of the industry is so corrupt. No, that's not. In Robert won a legal case, which meant he won back the rights to King Crimson music.
Yeah,
it's in the early 90s, and we were looking for ways to bring that music into the world, and there wasn't a proper vehicle. So we originally formed the label so that we could do the archives, and also to set up an example of how an ethical record company might work. So I'm sure you're familiar with the fact that DGM, for example, doesn't seek to own copyrights.
Yeah.
Which is not general practice in the industry, as you probably also know. Yeah. So, for example, we wanted to show, firstly, the artist should own their own copyright. Secondly, the artist should be fairly rewarded for their contribution. And general practice, neither of those are true. most artists, their copyrights are owned by the labels, and the amount of money that they get paid in royalties is in our view unfair. So we set it up as for two purposes. Firstly, to be a model, and secondly, because we needed a vehicle to bring King Crimson music into the world. And it began just with the archive. So when the very first ones we did the string quintet, but then we went through and we did, an archive from Epitaph, an archive from 1969. We worked our way through the various incarnations of the band. In 2003, the whole catalogue came back, including the albums, the studio albums that had previously been licensed to Virgin EMI. And so we were then able to address those afresh. And for example, to release those in surround sound and things that at the time, major labels also didn't think was very interesting.
Yeah.
It's given us the freedom, hopefully, to look at a music catalogue and handle a music catalogue in a way that I think they should be handled by everybody. I think it's really sad that so many artists, their catalogues aren't handled, with the love and care that they should be.
That's right. What do you think should be the role of a record label? It used to be that will lend you money at the beginning. Perhaps you couldn't have the equipment. They will support advertising. They will support a little percentage of the tour. It doesn't exist anymore. So bands will say, well, if the record label is not going to do anything for me, then I'm better off creating my own record label and produce it as, David Singleton Incorporated, because they're not doing anything for you, right?
Well, they used to have two roles. They used to be gatekeepers, as in they were the people who chose what you listened to at one time. So in the days when it was difficult to put out a record, the first role of the record labels was they were the gatekeepers. They were the people who chose whether or not your music would be heard by the world. And you're right. Also at the time when it was difficult and you had to go and, make vinyl and put it on a lorry and ship it to a load of shops, there was something that ordinary little people couldn't do. So that was, when it first started, I think that was the major role of the record labels. They still do have a role in that most very large artists do possibly benefit from the sheer advertising rights of the major labels. If you want to be, a gazillion selling artist, the answer probably is the record labels still do have. It is something of a deal. It's a two-edged sword when you handle by the labels. So we're very happy outside of that system.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. What was the motivation? Let's say. So what's happened is, it's not my case because I buy a lot of music, right? So I support different bands. I have a huge collection of music, but many people now in the world, right? Although vinyl came back about 3 years ago, and now cassette is coming back a little bit, fewer and fewer people buy CDs and buy record and so on, so forth, vinyl. So if on a way, let's say Robert Fripp got together with the guys and they want to record a new album and everybody is thinking great, and the cost is going to be whatever, 100,000 just to make them out. From on one hand, you want to create the music and you want to put it out there in the form of a vinyl or a CD for people to enjoy the music and buy it, but fewer and fewer people are buying that. So where is the balance between creating new stuff and then how you want to recover your investment from a financial point of view?
Okay, I will give you the long answer to that question. There's a short one.
I'm here to listen to everything.
I'll give you the long answer. So the partly the interesting thing is that we still have rising physical sales. So I think the fact that physical sales are dying is true. I mean, it will happen over the next period, but it hasn't happened as fast as I think. It isn't happening with us in the same way that it is with other people. And I think part of that is that people still want to buy things if you make things they want to buy. So, for example, if in the olden days when, you had one big hit and you could just put it on a CD and people would keep buying that CD forever and ever, that's gone. That is gone. You're right. People will not keep buying that CD forever. They'll listen to it on Spotify. However, in our case, for example, if you're willing to assemble a box set with everything from a particular album in it, and I don't know if you know the King Crimson box sets we do,
I do it, yeah.
22 discs and 4 Blu-rays and whatever else they are. So if you are willing to take the love and the care to go and put something together that is a comprehensive overview, but mostly I think is made with love. In other words, this isn't made as a commercial venture. We simply look at it and we think, okay, if we were a fan, or what would we want in this box?
Yeah.
And if you do that, those things still sell very, very well. So I think that the notion that physical sales are dying is true, is only true if you don't try hard enough. In other words, provided you are willing to make things that people would like to own, people will still buy them. It's probably why people, I think one of the main reasons why people buy vinyl is that there is something nice to own about vinyl. It's a nice artifact to own. Whereas the CD, I don't know if a CD was ever really, it was a useful way of listening to music, but whether it's, I don't know, I have this CD, it's nice to own, I want to fondle it. That's not true, I don't think. So physical sales are interesting, and for years and years, when the whole industry was saying, oh, we're on all the streaming services, and our profits are dying, we're earning no money because our physical sales have died. We used to say, well, that's interesting because we're not on the streaming services, and our physical sales are going up. Perhaps there's a relationship between the two. So that's the first half of it. With albums, you're quite right that the days when you could spend a fortune making an album, certainly unless you're a very, very major artist, and you were going to get that money back, are probably over. And I'm not sure that it's such a bad thing. It's in other words, we have to accept that we are where we are. But if you go back to partly before Sgt. Pepper's by the Beatles, and certainly before Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd, which are probably two albums where the relationship between recording time and live happened. Before that, albums were simply something that musicians did while they were doing everything else. So if you look at the schedule of any band, I'm playing a concert, a few days in the studio, concert. That was the rhythm of it. And the album wasn't this thing that you spent years doing. The album was simply a snapshot that you took along the way while you were playing live. Yep. Does that make?
Yeah, it does.
And I think, and if you look at life.